Please help me welcome Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Oh, you guys suck. Let's go. I mean, I just heard this survey, like you're the second most smartest people behind DC. Who the fuck took that survey? That's what I... Seriously. No, when I use the F word, I'm just channeling Gary Vee. I heard he was here and said the F word 28 times in 15 minutes. So I won't be that bad, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best because I spoke last night at a whiskey company. So I'm glad I didn't go to bed last night. I just came right straight here. Come on, you guys. Give me an amen for social media. Amen. God, you suck. You really do. When you sound like a bunch of Lutherans, you know? Lutherans live in constant fear that someplace, sometime, somewhere, someone's having a good time. That's funny, people. You should know, when I ask you for an amen, I want you to pretend you're Baptist. If your name's Goldstein or Feinstein or something, throw in an oy vey. I don't care, okay? Give me an amen. Amen. There, that's better. Now we can get going. He mentioned I'm from South Dakota. Anyone ever been to South Dakota? You been there? Awesome. Anyone from South Dakota? Never is. I always like to ask. This is what we'd call population density. In fact, I'm actually heading back there this afternoon to head to my ranch because I got to take care of horses and stuff, which I don't get back enough. But and be with you guys kind of reminds me of the first time I met my wife's great-grandmother. Now, my wife is about 5'1", about 105 pounds, and Grandma Agnes is even smaller than her. And the first time I met her, she looked up at Tammy, and then she looked way up at me, and she looked at Tammy, she looked way up at me, and she turned back to Tammy and said, "Isn't he bigger than necessary?" And so, you know, I feel like that a little bit this morning. So I want to visit with you and talk to you about a couple of different things. As you mentioned, I have a show on Bloomberg, and we have new television shows now on over-the-top television channel called the C-Suite TV that we have developed for C-Suite executives all over the world. And we host a number of conferences, a community, and so forth. But, you know, wherever I go, people come up to me and talk about when I was the chief marketing officer at Kodak, which I left 5 years ago this month. And last year they went bankrupt. And doesn't a day go by where someone doesn't ask me, what happened? What happened? You're talking about one of the most iconic companies in the world in terms of what they could do and how they could do things and the innovation that they had. If you even understood the market cap, at one time they had more market cap than any other company in the world and most of the automobile companies combined with close to 400,000 employees. And, you know, when you think about it, they had the only product that people would actually run back into a burning building to save. I know that to be true because back in 2001, my home was struck by lightning. Lightning came through the house and actually struck me. And our house was on fire. And as I woke up, and I couldn't hear, I couldn't see, but as I started to gain my senses, my wife was running by with a box of photographs going, "Are you okay?" Just so you know. That's where you stand, guys. Well, I tell people they didn't go bankrupt last year. They actually went bankrupt back in 1975. See, in 1975, a gentleman by the name of Steve Sasson, an engineer, sat inside of a room and took some digital component parts and put them together and created the very first digital camera. It was a blue box about this big. I used to sit it on my desk so that people would be reminded of what we missed. And he took an actual digital photograph of a photograph. How ironic. And then he took that device the very next day and went to C-suite offices, much like myself, and he showed this device to all these executives and said, "Look what we've got. Look what we're going to do. We are going to redefine the Kodak moment." And every single executive said, "Put it away. Put it away." See, we make a little roll of film. We make film. We make a little box of film, a yellow box with this little roll inside, and we make 90% profits from that, and that's what we do. We're in the film business, and what you're talking about is going to mess up our film business, so put that away because we're going to milk this for as long as we possibly can. And that's when they went bankrupt. So what I want to do is talk to you today about driving change. In the front of my book, I put this as a dedication to all the naysayers, opportunities, and obstructions to stand in the way of driving change and progress in any organization. Note, we will beat you. Because what I want to do is talk to you about how we do that, how to adapt, change, or die. Because if you're not growing, if you're not moving, your business is dying. And we sometimes forget that. I bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career, $25 billion in transactions, and I've held almost every single role that's ever been in any company. And I know that we've always got to keep moving. And there's so many times I just want to say, well, geez, let's lock that in place. But I've also realized that once you lock it in place is the time in which you start to die. So I want to talk to you about how we adapt, change, or die. And I'm not talking about driving change for change's sake, because no one gets into an automobile and locks in the steering wheel or the brake pedal or the gas pedal. We have to constantly make changes, and no matter what we do, we think that the program, we set up a plan, and I've never seen the plan work yet, ever. Well, most of us, quite frankly, we put the plan together and we sit it on the left-hand side of our desk and we never touch it again. We always want to go from point A to point B, but it always looks like the right-hand side. That's what success is. And so I want to talk to you about being what I call agents of change. Now, when I went to Kodak, I was so excited to go to Kodak at that time, back in 2006. I actually jumped on a plane and flew to Rochester a week early before I passed the urine test or anything. People, that's funny. I don't, you know. And I'm on a plane, and I'm starting to talk to this young woman because I want her to get her to ask me what I do so I can tell her that I'm going to be the chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak. And so we start this conversation. As we're in this conversation, she's talking about herself, going on, yada, 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 yada. Finally she shuts up. I mean, and then she turns to me and she says, well, what do you do? I said, well, thank you for asking. I'm the chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak. And she said, who's that? Absolutely true story. I knew the job was going to be a little harder. And, when I got there, I decided to test the mettle of the team. And I used a clock to do it. Now, in a lot of big corporate places, now I had over, at that time, I think about 4,000 marketing people working for me at the time. And so I was bringing them in and wanted to test the teams and look at the plans. What do we got? What are we getting done? What's the next 90 days supposed to look like? Because I was supposed to be moving. We're talking about a company that was going like this, and yet we had to take some products and move like this, and we're moving a transition. If you say what you want about Kodak today, even back then, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, we were a B2B company. We weren't a B2C company, just no one had realized it. Today, the company does about $9 billion and throws $2 billion to the bottom line. It's not bad for a company. $2 billion worth of profit to the bottom line is a pretty good company, even when they went through their bankruptcy. The problem is all the consumer business, but we can go on and on. I remember the very first day I showed up, we called a meeting, and I said, who's in charge of the Olympics? A woman raised her hand. I said, get your bags, go to Switzerland and cancel. Let's get us out of the Olympics right now. Right now. And she said, what do you mean? I said, what, you didn't hear me? I said, go, get your bags, get on a plane tonight, go meet with the Olympics, and get us out of the Olympics. That which is, you don't even understand the scope of that decision. First of all, the very first Olympic sponsor ever in the history of the modern Olympic Games in 1896 was Eastman Kodak, made by the founder of the company, a decision made by the founder of the company. Why was I getting out of it? Because that sponsorship cost us $100 million. Now you take that times 2.5, which is your activation, on top of that fee, we're talking a lot of money. Do you know how many cameras you have to sell at a 10% profit margin in order to pay for $250 million worth of activation? Anybody want to guess? A lot, yeah. There are not enough cameras manufactured in the world at any given time to pay for that. So you have to change. So I started calling the teams in, and I said, and I got there early, and I got up on a chair, and I moved the clock up ahead by about 20 minutes. And when people came into the room, they looked at the clock, they looked at their watch, they looked at the clock, looked at the watch, and the clock was wrong. And pretty soon they said, what time do you have? 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 And then they'd start saying, well, the clock is wrong. The clock is wrong. Well, somebody should do something about this. How can we work in a building where the clocks don't even work? And they would start complaining and bitching and moaning and start forming committees about how they're going to get it organized to change the clock. And I'm going, move on. And this happened day after day after day for like 2 weeks solid. And they'd come in, look at the clock, look at the watch, look at the clock. What time do you have? What time do you have? What time do you have? Finally, I just said, why doesn't someone just do something? And a woman got up and she walked over to the clock and she put a chair underneath the clock and she hiked her dress up and she stood on the chair and she changed the clock. I named her my chief of staff the very next day. I am not joking. She runs a $2 billion company today. See, that's what we're looking for. That's what executives in the C-suite are looking for. We're looking for what we call clock changers. I call them white buffalo. These are the people that stand out in the crowd. That's what we want. We're looking for people who see things that must be changed and change them. We're looking for problem solvers, not problem seekers. You know how many people come to the C-suite, come to my office every single day, or any other C-suite executive and say, hey, let me tell you a problem we have. Like, I frickin' don't know we have problems. Why don't you surprise the shit out of me and bring a solution instead of bringing me the problem? That's what we want. We're looking for people like that who just say, hey, I got a way to fix this. And by the way, don't even ask for permission, just fix it. We'll notice it. It's a rare thing. We want change agents for the process. We want cheerleaders who reinforce the goal, not to blindly drink the Kool-Aid, but once we've made the decision, once we've had debate about what we're going to do or where we're going to go, and we make that decision and we lock it in, we're all behind it. Then we start drinking the Kool-Aid. And I want SEAM operators. I don't need people who want to say, that's not my job. So I want to talk to you about what I see are some of the 5 things that we run into that stop us from succeeding in the way in which we need to do. Number 1, not in any particular order, is fear. We're afraid. As human beings, it's built into our DNA. That's how we survived. All my life, I wanted to be a cowboy. All right? As I mentioned, I live in South Dakota, but my father was in the military, so we moved from Air Force Base to Air Force Base. Finally, in my 30s, I said, look, I got enough money. I'm going to get some land, and I'm going to get some horses, and I'm going to be a cowboy because I've always wanted to be one. So I went out and did like anybody else. I got the book, Horses for Dummies. I got the videos, right? I'd never been on horses or knew how to saddle horses. I've been to trail rides. You know those trail rides you've ever gone on at a convention or something and ride the horse named Diablo or something like that? You know, I did that. But I didn't know how, so I decided. So I went out and I got all the stuff. I got saddles. I got one for me, one for my wife, my son, my daughter, an extra one just in case. I got the blankets, and I even got a trailer because I knew I was going to have to haul the horses. Then I got 2 horses. And I decided that what I should do is, before I take them and let them loose on my ranch, I should take them to the stables because I didn't know how to catch them yet. So I took them to a stable so they could kind of get used to some of the horses and I could learn and see what they would do. And so I remember I got the horse out of the trailer the very first time and I tied him up and I'm going to saddle him for the first time ever and ride my horse. I'm going to be a cowboy. I mean, I had the hat, everything. I was ready. And I don't know if you've ever saddled a horse. It's not as easy as the videos show. And so, I put the blanket on, he kicked the blanket off, and I'm holding the blanket on, I throw the saddle on, and then the stirrups up underneath the saddle, I take that, and I get that, and then I put the belt on, the cinch belt, and then he starts kicking, and the whole saddle goes up underneath him, and then I got to, pull that back over here, and it's all tangled up, and so then I said, well, I'll put the bridle on. Have you ever tried to put a horse bridle on? They got straps freaking everywhere, okay? And you got to put the ears, and by the way, horses don't like you touching their ears, okay? That's something I learned. And then as I'm putting up the ears up here and here, and then I put the bit upside down, and he's getting pretty pissed. I'm deciding maybe this isn't a good time to be riding this horse, but I'm still going to do it. But I still didn't have the saddle right, so, I looked over, and way over somewhere, with about 60 yards was this young girl, about 14, very petite little young gal. You can imagine what it was like for me to walk up to her. big strapping, soon-to-be cowboy. I took my hat and can you help me saddle my horse? You know? In order to be a maestro, you got to learn to play a lot of bad notes. You know, I can remember I was one of the first 1,000 people on Twitter, and I can remember sitting down with my social media team. I was one of the first 1,000 people on Twitter, and them showing me how to do it and learning. You know, that's what we have to do in business. You can't be an expert in everything, and you're going to learn, but you have to take the step. You have to overcome the fear of doing it wrong. Number 2, tension. Marketers, leaders in business. Your job after today, and you should put it on your business card, is CTO, Chief Tension Officer. Our job as leaders is to take everybody from the middle of the stage and put them on the very edge of the stage. In sports, we have a saying, no pain, no. Then why don't we have tension in business? I don't get this. That should be what we do. Or you're going to have those people in your operation, you know who they are. They'll drag you back to the middle, where it's nice and safe, where everybody feels safer and more calmer, and it's equal and it's nice. You know who those people are. HR. You know? Legal, those sneaky bastards, right? Well, what we have to do as business people is say, no, your job isn't to take us back here. Your job is to make sure I don't fall off. You set the business rules. They just tell us how we can get it done, not if I can get it done. Create tension. 3, radical transparency. We're in the biggest age of radical transparency we've ever seen in business, in our personal lives. We share everything, sometimes more than what we need. But we're in this era of transparency, and it works. And companies, quite frankly, are very scared of it because we have been accustomed to doing the things the way we want to, not the way our customers want them done. So we created things like 800 numbers with a +1 here, 2 here, that some sadistic bastard created somewhere along the line. And yet in every company we all use them, yet none of us want to use them personally on our own. And so social media has opened us up, and it's made companies now start to realize that we can be more open and honest. In fact, we think we control our brand, and we don't. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We say, I own the brand, you don't own the brand, the customer owns the brand. Customers always own the brand. You just never heard them before. Well, now they get together and they start talking about you, and they have a chance and a voice. It doesn't mean you have to give up your own voice or the way in which you want to do business. You know, you can still be on the edge. You can still have your own voice. You can still, you know, the customer's not always right. You know, I can remember one time I tweeted out to a customer who said something very mean on Twitter, and I wrote out and I tweeted, "Bite me." And you can imagine the corporate guys running into my office, the communication guys. I could hear him out there. Can I speak to Mr. Hayzlett? Come on in, David. He walks in and he goes, Mr. Hayzlett, as a corporate officer of one of the oldest corporations in America, it's Kodak, you should really not be so mean and write "bite me" in a tweet. I said, okay, I'll be nicer. Is that better? You want me to be nicer? That would be very appreciative. We would really like that. Okay, great. Thanks. He left. I got on the Twitter, and I wrote, "Please bite me." You know, so. And then when he came back 5 minutes, I said, you have to be clearer in your instructions if you want to do this, right? But, you know, I'm watching. Let me give you a good example of how well this works. I'm watching television. This is before I'm doing my C-suite television show, and I'm looking for shows, and all of a sudden I'm watching TV, and I see a commercial for Domino's. You see this commercial? They come on and they say, "Our pizza tastes like cardboard." They said it sucks. They're running a commercial that says they suck, that their product sucks. And I'm thinking, imagine the meeting. They're in a meeting. They're all talking about how great they are. And all of a sudden, someone raises their hand. hello, call me. Chairman calls on him. He goes, we suck. We suck so fucking bad. We should advertise it. We should tell people that our stuff tastes like cardboard because we all know it's true, and it's going to help us. Can you imagine the conversation that went on? And so that intrigues me, and that's what one of my shows is about, is that I go in, and this is what I do, and I bring them all together, and I said, look, who was the person that raised their hand and said that? And by the way, is the person still here? Like to know that, right? And then, let me see if I have this right, Mr. Chairman. You decided that he was right. And then you decided to invest $10 million to retool the product, change the brand promise. He goes, well, whoa, we didn't change the brand promise. I said, yes, you did. Certainly you did. He goes, no, we didn't. I said, yes, you did. Your brand promise has been 30 minutes or it's free. We all know that, right? And now you're telling me you used to have a brand promise that said you cared more about getting me the box than what was in the box. And now you're telling me you spent $10 million, and then you retool the product. Now you're going to tell everybody how much better it is, and now you're telling me you care more about what's in the box than what with the box. I said, that's changing your brand promise. Imagine this, because we all did this. Remember this? How many of us have ordered Domino's? Come on. We all have, right? We've all called Domino's, and at the end of the thing, we hang up, and we immediately look at our watches. Kid you not, right? Look, I know this is true, because some of you aren't making eye contact right now. And we would wait and hope that they would be late so we would get a free shitty pizza. I mean, that's basically what we were hoping, right? That's exactly right. Well, these guys decided to do it different, and they decided to say, we acknowledge that we suck, we're going to change it, and change it we are, and we invite you to come back and try us and see if you like it better. And what's been the result? I don't know if you've watched their portfolio, you've watched what they've done, record sales, record earnings, record stock price. Through the freaking roof. They are just astounded at the response of their community by just being transparent. We all know it sucked. We all talked about it. We didn't care. And now they have something that's better, and people are now flocking to them. And you know what they're doing? They're doing it again. Have you seen the latest commercial? You people have to get out more often here, all right? The latest commercial is about their app and about how you phone in and how bad the experience is when you phone in. We all know what that's like, right? And so they make fun of the fact that you call in and they can't hear you, they take the orders wrong and do everything. They just say, go to the app. Just go to the app, fill it out yourself, and if you fuck it up, it's your problem, right? Oh, am I throwing stuff? That's my room key right there. Would you hang on to that for me? This is my driver's license, isn't it? Wow, that's fun. You notice I'm not letting loose this is the most personal device there is, right? We'll all talk, we probably should talk about this a little bit, but most personally, you know where your phone is more than you know where your children are. Oh yeah, you think about this. I mean, this has become the most important device. In fact, you think about, you lose your kids in the mall, which one do you go, and your phone, which one do you go look for first? All right, I'll guarantee you don't have to tell us, okay, because I already know the answer to that. All right, radical transparency. Sorry, it was a squirrel moment. I go off on every tangents every so often. Risk. For some reason, we're afraid to take risk. And I don't get this, especially digital people. Are you kidding me? We should be taking risk every day. Risk, that's what drives it. No pain, no gain. I talked about tension, risk. Listen, let me tell you about a story. When I was the chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak, we decided to go into the inkjet business. We decided to go in and sell inkjet printers because it was a high margin business. Huge, huge, huge margins. The biggest competitor in this marketplace made $9 billion last year alone off of inkjet cartridges. $9 billion in profit off of ink. Ink! More expensive than human blood. Ink. On the news, they talk about the price of oil. They ought to talk about ink. That's what they should do. There should be a report every night on the price of ink because it's more expensive than oil. You know what's, in fact, when you get your car filled, and you pay $4 a gallon, you're outraged. $80. You know what's more expensive than oil? I'll get to that in a minute. Or ink. It is ink eventually, but you know what's more expensive? Some of you might have it right here on your table. Bottled water. Bottled water is more expensive per ounce than oil. You know what's more expensive than bottled water? Vodka. Vodka is more expensive. You know what's more expensive than vodka? Champagne. Champagne. You know what's more expensive than vodka or champagne combined? Life-saving penicillin. You take penicillin, vodka, champagne, bottled water, and oil times a factor of 10. Ink. Ink. Now the model for, and I can't use their name, I can't tell you their name because of legal problems. I have attorneys that follow me around everywhere, okay? So I can't say their name. Let's just refer to the company as Big Ink. Big Ink. And their model basically is give you the printer off the shelf for free, and the inkjet cartridges are locked up behind the counter. Basically, here's the crack pipe, right? And we decided what we would do is we'd sell you a fair price for the printer and half price for the ink, and we'd still make a killing. Listen, just so you know how much is it they're making. $9 billion. When you fill up your gas tank with gas at $4 and you got a 20-gallon tank, $80, you're outraged. You're sitting there at the pump going, this is ridiculous. Do you know what it would cost you to fill up your tank with ink from Big Ink? Come on, guess. $400, not even close. $1,000, not even close. $5,000, not even close. $10,000, not even close. $462,000. Now, at Kodak, I was only going to charge you half that because we cared, right? So I was trying to show the decadence of the model, So I decided we'd go after what we were calling high burners, those people that use 4 to 8 times as more inkjet cartridges than a normal person. So chances are probably not you guys, maybe some of you. Very high-end market. We're going after the creatives because they make a lot of projects, do a lot of things. They burn a lot of ink. Faster we get to them, higher we get to profitability. So I wasn't trying to sell to the mass market, so I was looking for places where those people were. One of the places those people like to go was movies. So I decided to do 2 things. One, run a commercial before the movie. Second, tie it into a mobile campaign where you would see the commercial and then text us and get 50% off a pricey ink. So I hired Vinny Pastore. Remember Vinny? He played Big Pussy on The Sopranos. Because who better to show the decadence of the model than a gangster? Now this was the commercial. I can't show you the commercial because Big Ink sued me. Now, I can't tell you their name, but I'll give you their initials, HP. Okay, now, so I'm in this fight against Big Ink, and here's the commercial. Vinny pulls up into the East River, the docks, in a black Lincoln Continental. He gets out. He's wearing black leather coat, black leather pants, carrying a baseball bat, walks around to the trunk, opens up the trunk, looks down inside. The camera shot's looking up. He's leaning in at what you think's a body. He says, you've been lying to us. You've been cheating us. You've been robbing us blind. The family says, you've got to go. Then we show a picture of an HP inkjet printer in the trunk. He sets it down. He beats it with a baseball bat, ties a chain around it, puts it with a cement block, and throws it into the river. He gets back into the car, puts his arm around a Kodak printer, and says, welcome to the family. Well, I mean, we're ripping you off too, but so, you know, not as bad. Then the headline says, don't get whacked by high inkjet prices. Text this number and get 50% off. A great, great spot. We tested it. Double-digit response. Double-digit. In terms of satisfaction with the ad. I mean, I'm like, as a marketer, I'm going like, whoa, I've never seen anything like that. That's unbelievable. I said to the team, let's go nationwide, get this out everywhere we can. So we went big, go big or go home. Blockbuster weekend over the movies, and I'm running into movie theaters that weekend looking and watching people as they responded, and I think, this is going to be great, this is going to be great. I get down Monday morning, I'm waiting for them to bring me the number of texts that we got over the weekend. They come walking in, they got a sheet of paper with the number of texts that we got over the weekend. They slide the sheet of paper across the desk. I look at it. The number 2. And I said, what do you mean 2? You mean 2 million? We got 2 million texts? That's phenomenal. They go, no, Jeff, we got 2 texts total. I said, that's not good. We spent millions of dollars on this campaign. That's not a good ROI. I can tell you that right now. I'm in marketing, but I know that. I know that. And so I said, well, anybody that's got anything to do with this campaign, get them in a room. So we pulled the team together, and I'm holding up a sheet of paper. I said, somebody please explain to this. You got to help me out. I said, we tested this. Even the people in Westchester County found this funny. And all you tell me is all we got was 2 texts. That's all we got. Somebody please explain. I got to go before the board of directors. I'm going to go before the chairman of this company, and I'm going to explain why I spent millions of dollars on a campaign that only got 2 texts. What? What went wrong? Finally, someone's hand went up in the back of the room. I said, well, what? What is it? He says, Jeff, what do you do when you walk into a motion picture theater with your phone? What do you do? I said, where the hell were you when we came up with this idea? Absolutely true story. True as can be. I turned to everybody and said, my bad. No one died. So no one died. It's a great freaking commercial. It's a great campaign. We already got somebody to sue us over it. It's good. This is good. We know this is good because, see, I was trying to poke them in the eye. Every time I poked Big Ink in the eye and they had to talk, we had to go and talk about it. So it was great. So I got to do my value statement every single time I get in the media about it. So, but I said to him, I said, well, you better do something with this. We've got great assets. So we repurposed it, which we did. Grew the business by 1,427% that year. You got to take risk. Think about what you're going to do. Especially in social media, you're going to screw it up. Trust me. I've done it all the time. You're going to post something, and after you post it, you're going to think, oh my gosh, should I have done that? Should I do that? No one died. So if you make a mistake, what's the worst that's going to happen to you in marketing? Paper cut, maybe. I don't know. Right? That's what we got to learn. Take risk. Promises. We got to drive promises. Promises, promises, promises. Works like this. You ever been to McDonald's at the drive-up? You pull up to the drive-up. First thing you do, you go to the first window thing, and you shout out your order. Pull up to the next window, you pay your money. You pull up your next window, you hopefully get your food. But it doesn't always work that way, does it? No. No, they come over to you when you pull up to the window, and they say, I'm sorry, sir, your food's not quite ready. Would you mind pulling up over here to this parking spot over here, and we'll bring it out to you? Has that ever happened to you? Absolutely, and we have to start fighting back. You know why? I'll tell you why, because clowns lie. They lie. They're evil, sadistic little bastards, and they lie. And we have to fight back. And so when they come over to you and say, hey, would you mind pulling up over here, saying, just do what I do. I turn to them and say, no, thank you, I'll wait. And I roll my window back up. Oh, yeah. Now, this is what happens when you do that. Pretty soon, the 14-year-old assistant manager comes over and knocks on your window. And they'll say, sir, I'm sorry, but if you don't pull forward, you're going to hold all these people up. And I usually reply, I'm okay. Doesn't bother me. And I roll my window back up. Pretty soon, the 16-year-old manager comes over, knocks on your window, says, sir, is there a problem? Yeah, there's a problem, young man. See, here's the deal. We had a promise. We negotiated it. I gave you my order. You took it. I got up the next window. You could have had a chance to get out of it, but you took my money. With the anticipation and the implied promise was when I pulled up to the next window, my food would be delivered to me in a timely fashion. But that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to force me over here to parking purgatory, and you're not renegotiating the promise. Now, if you would like to renegotiate the promise and give me one of those minty shakes or one of those apple pies I like, I might pull over there. But you didn't offer that. Since you didn't offer it, I'm waiting right here, and I roll my window back up. Now when I go through McDonald's to shout out my order and pay my money, I get to the next window. They throw the food through the window into my car. See, that's what we have to drive in marketing and in business. We have to hold people to promises, what I refer to as mutual conditions of satisfaction. That's what it is, not forecast, not I might get it done then. Have you ever made a promise with your kids and try to back out of it? Like let's go to Disney World, and then try to back out of that, because then they'll say to you, no, you promised, right? You promised. We need more of that in business. Promises. Keep your promises. You want to ask yourself why you're in this game and what you're doing and how you're doing it, because it's very important for you to understand what those conditions of satisfaction are. Also, I think you have to get down the message better. I think we're doing a fairly poor job overall about messages. You know, when I was at Kodak, I had over 3,500 vendors in marketing. By the time I left, I had 170, because there's no way I could have that many vendors doing what I needed to do to get the growth or whatever I need to do to turn the thing around, which obviously we didn't do a very good job of. And I used to bring these companies in. And these were marketers selling me marketing services. And at the end of an hour and a 48-page PowerPoint presentation, I still didn't know what their elevator pitch was. So I decided in my first book, and reiterated in this last book, to talk about the new digital version of the elevator pitch. And this is what it is. It's called the 118. So write this down. The 118 is simply this: 118 seconds. That's how long you have to get your message across. See, the average attention span of adult is 8 seconds. 8 seconds. I know that to be true because I looked it up on the internet, okay? 8 seconds is the time in which you get to hook them, to get what we call the lean-in factor. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you say something that's so provocative that they lean in? That's what I'm talking about. So what is it that you can say that they lean in? And they want to hear the next 110 seconds. And the next 110 seconds is the average time someone spends on an elevator ride. From the time you press the button, wait for the doors to open, step on, ride up or ride down, and get off. And that's how much time you have. You have 8 seconds to hook someone, 110 seconds to sell them. And then the 110 seconds, purvey your value. Don't tell me you work with them and them and them. Tell me what you're going to do for me. I could care less what you're going to do for Coke or for this company or that company. What are you going to do for me? Now, some of you will say, Jeff, that's not enough time. Not enough. Yes, it is. If Moses can deliver his message in 2 PowerPoint slides of 5 bullet points each. Oh, come on, that is funny too. And let me also mention this. Passion. Passion. I was visiting with a couple of you out in the hallway, and I know some of you personally. We're all passionate about our products. The people at Kodak were passionate about what they did. They loved their company. But it takes more than passion to deliver on the things that we have to do. You know, I love pheasants. I love pheasants. It's our state bird in South Dakota, the Chinese ringneck pheasant. I love the little feathers, and I love to watch them run around. And then I love to get a gun, hunt them down, and kill them. All right? It's also my favorite passion, passion. I was so passionate about pheasants that a number of years ago, I went out and got about 3,500 acres, and I decided to get into the pheasant farming business. I was going to corner the market on pheasants. And so I built pens the size of football fields, and I put telephone poles around them, and then I strung nets over those poles so that the pheasants could run free before I killed them. And one night in South Dakota, we had, as we do every single day, thunderstorms that rolled through the prairie. And we had 3 inches of rain in less than half an hour. And I had 10,000 pheasants that huddled up into one of those large pens. And they they gathered together and they looked up into the sky and they opened their little beaks and they drowned. These are the stupidest fucking birds in the face of. They call birds foul and pheasants are the primary reason. You know how difficult it is to bury that many pheasants? Carve their little names on the little stone. It takes more than passion. And then I want you to think about your brand, because everybody's talking about this word brand all the time. This is the definition of a brand. It comes from cowboys like me. It's where the word brand came from. We take our cattle, we turn them loose with other cattle, we gather them together, we put a little brand or identification of who owns them on the side of every one. So basically a brand is the identification on the side of a bovine and occasionally a horse. That's where the word brand came from, and now we talk about it in terms of brand. Well, let me tell you what the real definition for us as marketers is brand. It is a promise delivered. Promise delivered. What is your promise? How do you convey your energy? How do you convey the message? How do you convey the feeling of who you are in your brand promise? I own a company called Tallgrass, a public relations company. Operates New York, San Francisco, LA, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In fact, if you look on our website, we actually list those cities, and then behind Sioux Falls, we put ... because we can. Because everybody says, why Sioux Falls? But our slogan is, and we only work with high-growth companies. I always like that when we sit down with companies and we say, we only work with high-growth companies. And someone asks me what a high-growth company is, we say, not you, and we don't want to work with you. Because you've had to ask. Because if you're high-growth, you know who you are. Slogan for the company for Tallgrass, by the way, is, if you want to run with the big dogs, you have to learn to piss in the tall grass. It's on our website. It's on every frickin' slide. If you're offended, you're not our customer. What is your brand? When I was in college, I had the opportunity, and my job, the 4 years I was there, was to bring on speakers onto campus, which was a cool job. And then I got to know these speakers. And I got to have speakers like Mikhail Gorbachev and Margaret Thatcher and Andrew Young, Jimmy Carter, Elie Wiesel, Ralph Nader. I picked up Ralph Nader in a 1976 Ford Pinto at the airport. He wouldn't get in the car. Now, for those of you who are laughing and the person next to you isn't, obviously they're young and don't know much. No, I'm just, would you please explain who Ralph Nader is at the break to the person that's not laughing, please? All right, I appreciate that. Largest recall ever of automobiles was the Ford Pinto because if you bumped it, it blew up. So anyway, that's a true story. I actually had to borrow $20 from someone at the airport because I was a poor college student. I had no money to get him a cab to get him back to the campus. And I always got to go out to dinner with these speakers like the night before. And one of the speakers that I had was Jacques Cousteau. You remember Jacques Cousteau? You remember for a lot of us on Sunday night what we would do? We would watch The Wonderful World of Disney. And then afterwards we watched what? Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Remember that? And like Marlin would be in the truck while Jim would be out wrestling the alligator or something like that. Kind of like management and people. Well, that was funny too, folks. And then we'd watch the undersea adventures of Jacques Cousteau. And this guy was a hero of mine. You remember the music that would come on? Da-da-da-da-da. And it would, the whole theme, and remember they wore those red stocking caps? I used to have one, and I would sit in front of the TV. I mean, this guy was a hero, and here I was having dinner with him. The night before he's giving a speech, and he's regaling me with story after story after story. And one of the stories that he tells me is about when he was down deep underwater, about 130 feet, which if you know anything about diving, I'm not a diver. I
don't like to get in the water like that. But he's down deep in an underwater cave. And when you come up at that level, you have to come up in stages, and you have to decompress the pressure of the air molecules in your bloodstream, or they expand. And when they expand too much, you get what they call the bends, which is a very painful condition. And usually a lot of people die from it. Most people do. Excuse me. And he looked at his watch, and he'd calculated by the depth and everything else. He was running out of air. It was time for him to come up. And as he started to come up, as he came out of the cave, he severed his air hose. Just a little pin prick. It wasn't big. But at that pressure, what little air he had left streamed out like a jet engine. And he was out of air. And in that split second that occurred, he realized he had a chance. And all this stuff is calculating in his head that he might get the bends, he might die, but at least he had a chance. If he could get to the top, he'd have a chance to live. And so he took off as fast as he possibly could. And as he's swimming up, out of nowhere, someone tackles him underwater. And it's one of his swimming buddies. And he turns him around, and he takes his air hose, and he shoves it into Jacques' mouth. And they share air as they made their way up in stages. And obviously he lived because he was telling me the story. But I turned to him and I said, Mr. Cousteau, you could have died. Weren't you scared? And this is what he said to me. He said, Jeffrey, one should never be scared when you're in good company. Well, that's pretty good. Well, you're going to be in some great company today because you've got a great lineup of speakers, from sustainability all the way through a really likable guy named Dave Kirpin. And your host here have put together a great, great conference, and it's been my pleasure to be in your company. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.